Hello, my name is Brandon Schroeder, and my presentation is on nuclear weapons and how they were built, along with the advantages and disadvantages of them, and how they will hold in the future and what that looks like. Background information. So, for some background information, the atomic bomb was created by Leo Szilard, who's pictured on the right. So he came up with the idea while waiting to cross the road near Russell Square in London on September 12th, 1933. And little than like roughly 12 years later, that atomic bomb invention was actually used by the United States to drop atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan, after the Japanese would refuse to surrender after Pearl Harbor and numerous attempts by the Americans to get them to uh, wave the white flag and surrender. And in the 1930s, the United States, United Kingdom, and Canada, along with France, collaborated during World War II in what they commonly call the Manhattan Project, which was actually the building and the research done to create the fission weapon, which is now known as the atomic bomb, which was used in World War II. So, some more background information. During August of 1945, towards the end of the war, the atomic bombings actually were conducted by the United States upon Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan. They were actually done at the conclusion of the war, towards the end. It wasn't actually the last thing that was done, but it was due to Japan not surrendering. Uh, Once they did do that, it was virtually end of the war because they surrendered shortly after. And then the Soviet Union started developing their own atomic bombs shortly after um, World War II ended. That's roughly when the Cold War started. It started in 1945 and went until 1989, and Great Britain and France followed Soviet Union by conducting experiments to create nuclear weapons and atomic bombs, similar to the United States, because they were also a part of the Manhattan Project. Current day North Korea is still shooting off missiles and atomic bombs and is a constant threat. I think more than most other countries, even though on the graphic to the right, the presentation, some of the other countries have significantly more warheads and stuff than North Korea, but North Korea is also a dictatorship. So Russia and the United States are by far the two most heavy countries with military and nuclear weapons and stuff like that. Very similar to like during the 1940s to 1990s during the Cold War, since really it was between the USSR, which was the Soviet Union, current day Russia, and the United States. So some of those countries are starting to cut down on the amount of warheads they have, which is definitely a good thing. And some others are picking up how many they have, but it's roughly the same. And obviously, this graph is a couple years old, but the information is very relevant and still very accurate to this day. So the victims of World War II and the atomic bombs really, obviously, still um, are from the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Largely were Japanese citizens. There were no accurate telling of how many victims there truly were because there was no count of how many people were actually in the cities at the time. So there were roughly 66,000 people who died in Hiroshima and 39,000 who died in Nagasaki from the bombings, all estimated deaths. However, there were a few people who survived, and people also died from causes due to the atomic bomb, but died at later dates from like radiation or cancer, or just fell ill and died at a later time. Um, and like I stated earlier, that this crazy event happened, leading to the end of the war, which is a good thing, and no other countries were using atomic bombs against each other, um, which honestly is definitely a good thing because these were probably, I would have to say, one of the most dangerous things ever created because it kills people on impact, but also people can die from uh, ca- causes from it, but not die immediately, die from cancer and stuff. So it's just a really, really bad thing, and it's definitely a good thing that our governments are trying to get rid of atomic bombs and missiles because it's definitely a threat to the end of the world, basically. So, for some of the pros to atomic bombs, there really isn't that many. So obviously, there is a way to prevent face-to-face war, which actually leads to more deaths of soldiers and possibly evasions, and it gives bigger countries a nuclear advantage just because they have the budget and stuff to put into their military, like Germany, United States, Russia, England, and France. Like some of the big countries, they were able to do it rather than some small countries like Taiwan, Vietnam, Costa Rica, just some small countries. They also like have militaries and they're more allies with some of the bigger countries. Um, and chemical weapons can win a war or end a war quicker than soldiers on the ground. So it does have a pro, but it also obviously is using chemical weapons, so it can kill people. So that's definitely a negative. Um, and it simply prevents more soldiers from dying. That was like the main reason they used it in World War II because Japan wouldn't listen and just surrender. So they did this by it definitely killed more of the civilians than we would have liked as a country. However, it protected the United States civilians and our soldiers, especially since they attacked us at Pearl Harbor. For the cons, nuclear weapons are immoral. It's simple. You're intentionally killing people, and it's honestly terrible the way they do it because they're just trying to poison them. They created nuclear weapons to hurt people in time of war. They tried to do that as the most humane and quick way to kill someone, but obviously it's still not the best way to do something, especially in time of war. It does not give small nations a chance really, because you can easily attack them and overthrow their government and kill their people. So that's why there has to be allies with the big nations and little nations. That's how there's a lot of like province or um, like United States and Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is technically not its own country, but Puerto Rico is also not a state. But the way we're set up, we still take care of Puerto Rico in time of war and stuff like that. It's kind of big brother, little brother, protecting each other, and we're allies. Another one is it creates radioactive waste, like I stated earlier. But it's more than just killing people and giving them radiation. It destroys the ground, the environment as a whole. And obviously, if we start having a big war and atomic bombs or drop missiles and stuff, it's just gonna kill the Earth, and like it's just a bad situation to be put in. And it's expensive. It's the United States, I believe, spends the most on the military compared to anything else we spend money on, which is a good thing, but it's also a bad thing because it protects us, but it also probably could use that money for other things like education and just like healthcare and stuff like that. For the future, if a nuclear blast were to happen post blast, there would be destruction of cities, humans, and they would get sick from radiation. And if countries start attacking each other, like it's not just one nation getting hit like World War II. It would be every country. People would be dying so quick. They wouldn't be able to defend each other. It would just be a self defense, just to kill the other person before you get killed. And there's a threat of a nuclear holocaust happening at any point if something were to happen. And I think that's one of the big fears from the Cold War, is if something did happen, it would have been bad because everybody would have just been attacking each other, and we did almost have that happen a few times. Um, and there is always going to be a potential danger of war happening, especially a nuclear war, if we do keep up the amount of nuclear warheads we have and atomic bombs. In this quote I found, this leads us to question why the use of nuclear weapons, unlike chemical and biological weapons, is not clearly banned. And I'm not really sure about this one, but it actually really made me thought, because we definitely should have them banned, because obviously we're creating something to kill other people, which is not humane at all. So I'm thinking that something like that may get looked into to see if it's going to get banned or anything's going to change. I'm hoping it does, but unsure, because hopefully if it does get banned, maybe the military will spend less money on certain things and we'll be able to spend money on education and stuff. And the picture I have is just what kind of a missile looks like, because over time they have changed and they look more like missiles now. At the front there's a detonator, which is the tip. There's the main charge and the neuron generators, which is actually the component that's gonna like spring off and will actually shoot and be the missile itself that attacks the person. And in the back, it's the gas transfer system, and then the aiming and firing, along with the fins, which actually are spinning and kind of directing it to where it's supposed to go. So once it actually detonates, the tip is going to go where the fins were leading it to go. So that's how it actually will detonate and spring at a certain person or certain location, because it's going to be so big it's going to be more of a broad location than a single person. And finally, the references. I did use 3 in this presentation. So here are the 3. Thank you for watching.